Your wife.
Okay. Well, we are, I think, live, but of
We are
course,
live.
move us.
Seems to be.
So we're on a different URL.
Kind of miss those Christian squeaks, though.
Okay, now we're in the new one.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
We are
Thank you,
supposed to be live, so hopefully, we've got it on. Well, that was exciting, wasn't it? No idea why that happened at all. Yeah. Yes.
Ammon, remember long ago when I was at your house and we had crazy problems and we were 20 minutes late because it wasn't.
Yes.
There's always something.
We kind of got hit with you twice in a row because the week before my green screen software hadn't worked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I was keeping everyone entertained for 20 minutes. Bring out the clowns.
That's the point.
Aren't we all here?
We lost Arno. Yeah, well,
this is gonna be a fun replay, huh?
yes. Yes, unfortunately, this one is not going to be on the let's watch and watch and watch list. I guess YouTube doesn't like honesty. That's the lesson I'm getting from this.
That could be.
I write a bunch of stuff about honesty this week, and earlier, Bill, I was revisiting that old network roundtable hangout we did on honesty in small business.
Oh yeah, I was just like, oh, I've got to write for Teamy. I have to follow up because, golly gee whiz, stick by your guns.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so yeah, basically YouTube doesn't like honesty and is punishing me for writing so much about it.
Definitely take it personally, Ammon.
Yeah, it's saying, look, I've got hundreds of people trying to make money as YouTubers by having nothing to do with reality. Thank you very much.
Oh my gosh. Oh. Totally crazy. So there was a skip. The last I heard, you were talking about descriptions, meta descriptions. So fill me in on what happened between then and now.
I missed that. I was still trying to fix the hangout.
Oh, just fixing. Yeah.
I missed it too.
I didn't hear meta descriptions either.
This may have been.
We were talking title
Google
tags.
changing titles and descriptions.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't mind them changing the descriptions because that. I think a description does need to be contextual, but a title is a title. You know, I'm a keen reader. A book doesn't change its title just because the context in which I recommend somebody read it changes.
Right.
I don't know. They do change book titles too.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think they should. You know, these are trademarks. These are things that shouldn't be changing.
Yeah.
There has been some problems with people who have legal issues where they have to like change the site name or have to change something about a web page to get a brand off of it, and legally required to, and Google will still show that same title.
Yeah.
The same content within the title. That can be really frustrating. I know a few people have tweeted about that on Twitter. They've had major problems with that.
Oh,
yeah.
But it all comes down to anchor text, right? It's picking it up from the anchor text.
I don't want to be, you know, tuning into the series of Daredevil. And
major problems with that.
Oh,
Yeah.
But it all comes down to anchor text, right? It's picking it up from the anchor text.
Is somebody listening
That's all.
to?
Another one on camera when we're in-
That the anchor text, right?
Yeah, it's Anton. Hold on, I'll just
No,
mute him for a
there's
second
actually
while he catches up. There we go.
It's me.
So, I don't want to be watching the series Daredevil and have Google renaming it as Braveheart because it's decided they're similar.
Oh, yeah, that's irritating.
Well, they're picking up the titles either because it's contextually on the page, or I've seen it from anchor text as well. So they're not just going out there and randomly. Well, I guess if you pointed enough links at it that said Braveheart, maybe, but
Yeah, well, exactly. And co-citation has made things like that happen in the past. I've shared the story a couple of times that years ago, working for Juno Records, their rival Hard to Find Records kept showing up for their name, and they said, we can't see any mention of our site on their homepage. Why are they turning up in searches for Juno Records? They must be cloaking. And of course they weren't. It's just that in so many web directories in those days, Juno Records was right next to Hard to Find Records. So those words were right next to a link to each site. So yeah, they both showed up in search because Google was looking at the words within 250 words either side of a link.
although this reminds me of all the link power for when people are doing Google bombing, trying to get, President Bush show up for miserable failure and variations of that for various politicians and stuff.
Oh my gosh. That's funny.
I'm going to try and...
They've killed that, like 5, 6, 7 years ago? Hasn't
Google
been
Why?
around
It
for a
seems like
while.
it'd be wonderful.
Google bombing.
Using the web creatively. I see nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. So, just on books, since there's this dead silence, I know that some indie authors do change the titles of their books because they go through some kind of rebranding, where they're going to align all the books in a series or align all the books that they've created so their titles are similar. It's usually correlated with cover redesigns as well. Or they do a total rebranding, so the book name change, the text inside may be the same, but the title and the book cover change.
One pretty well-known example is Harry Potter. The first one, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, when they published the book, they decided that Americans wouldn't be able to understand what Philosopher's Stone was, and that's why in the US it became the Sorcerer's Stone.
Oh, that's really well. I love all the I don't understand it, but I love all the differences between American and British editions of the same book.
Mm-hmm.
All of Robert
This is the
Harris's
thing.
books
Yeah,
have
there are
different
not many
titles.
world famous American philosophers. This is the country that puts Donald Trump up as a potential candidate.
You saw my tweet, huh?
Philosophy is not your strong suit.
In the United States.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You have to have sorcerer.
Yeah. And even then, there's probably a couple of towns in the Bible Belt that actually still thought maybe they should stone him or burn him if he was a sorcerer.
Mm.
It's a fascinating country. Those of us outside the US. And believe me, there are parts of America we greatly envy. I love the creativity, the imagination that's still there. There is a reason that Hollywood is in the US. There is a reason that Disneyland is in the US. And when it comes to, holidays, the ability to have fun in a lot of ways, the Americans are wide open to that. Halloween is nothing over here what you have over there.
Mhm.
Nothing at all.
Yeah, but that's a marketing marketing thing. If you ask most Americans what Halloween is, they have no idea. It's the hallowed eve before All Saints Day. They're clueless.
I was the nerdy kid that went instead of trick or treat, happy All Saints Eve. And then I got to explain to each house what that was. And my friends would hate going trick or treating with me.
Yeah.
I mean, I love that kind of stuff anyway. But for me, it was always, an excuse to get out the stage makeup again and do some of the stuff I used to do there. Believe me, I make awesome zombie costumes and stuff like that. I used to play around with theatrical makeup quite a lot. I used to have a great interest in theatre as a child, and as I grew up, I got more into the other side of it. Learned all about disguises and things like that. I sent a guy to his own birthday party. He was there for over an hour before they spotted him, because I'd sent him there as his 60-year-old uncle.
Oh, wow.
And this is a small pub that is there to celebrate his birthday. There are only 40 people in the pub, and 30 of them are there for this birthday. He is one of only 10 people that aren't part of the celebration, and they still didn't spot him. And he was 6'6".
It's amazing what costumes do. I went to a Halloween party dressed as a salesman, so I had a suit and a shirt and a tie, and I can't remember if I wore a hat or not. And it was even smaller group than that, Ammon. It was maybe 20. Nobody recognized me. I mean, I was astounded.
Yep. Yeah, and I'd done the fun things before. One of my girlfriends way back had been studying gender differences, so I sent her out as a guy for the day, and to the extent where she could fool people, and she said it was fascinating. She got treated completely differently, although she also said never again. It's freaky, apparently. The world has suddenly changed. There is this subtle difference. You can't quite put your finger on, but you are treated completely differently.
Yeah,
and she said it was a little bit colder. It just seemed that smiles, she would have got scowls when she was a guy.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah, because that's really interesting, because that's outside of a party environment.
Yeah, and it's, as you know, the differences that perceptions make have always fascinated me. They fascinate me online. They're a huge part of why I love marketing, because we are playing with, look, here's this same product, but I can present it in 3 different ways and completely change how that product is seen, perceived, and valued. Perceptions are incredibly important to these things, and I love that kind of stuff. It's kind of like when we're picking an anecdote for something. The anecdote you pick can completely change how well your point gets across, and the complete way it's remembered. But,
yeah, that's really true. Another thing I've discovered, because I know in some of the posts that I've written for myself, and I'll pick an anecdote, and well, one thing is, I think content marketers take themselves extraordinarily seriously, and so they're like, oh man, weird, But my aim for most of them is not to reach content marketers. It's to reach business owners, small business owners, because to help them understand what goes into content, because I think we've had this discussion before, people say, hey, I want you to write, 300-500 word blogs a month with these keywords, and I'm like, no, not what we're doing, you know, and they're either on board or they're not. But there's this whole mythology out there about SEO and content, and it's so predominantly behind the times, really behind the times.
Where are you finding these people, Sarah?
I'm different places. I find them on sites that are looking for content creation or copywriters as kind of a crossover, because people don't know what the difference is. But, you know, and so most of them I blow off just because they're not ready. They don't have enough detailed specifics, or they're not willing to pay for what it takes to go in and actually write to their target market. They just want something, you know, they're into there must be something and it must be consistent.
Yeah, I'd say that we're getting blamed for this now. I don't think so, John. Yeah, I think most people have managed to follow us across. Content marketing it's one of those ones where there is a very serious side to it, and there is a very pretentious side to it. And unfortunately, they're quite different groups in each. Take somebody like Ronell. Now, Ronell is a serious content marketer, and he puts a lot of thought into it. And Michael King, similar, thinks of precisely who his audience is and what will connect with that audience. It's very much a psychological kind of approach to it. It's picking the person, speaking to them in their place, in their terms, in their language, in the way they want to know this. You know, it's going that extra step to engage. And other people, it's here's what I want to put out. Here's my content factory. And if you don't get it, you don't understand content marketing. And actually, no, guys, it's you that don't understand content marketing.
Yeah,
content
marketing yeah, because there is. I just had a conversation with several. It was like what's the word? There were two conversations going on in two different places about thinking before you write. And that is the important part, as far as I'm concerned, is that if to write content that is addressed to queries that potential customers and clients have, you have to think about what those are and how you can best bring to light the talents of the business, the talents, the skills, the products, whatever it is of the business, to address those concerns. But then there's a whole set of people, and many of them are professionals, who are into ego trips. I don't know what else to say. They're into ego trips. So they want it to be all about them. And of course their clients are going to come to them because they're so wonderful. That's their perception of how it works. And so they aren't that particularly interested in answering concerns of patients, you know, like real simple stuff like, is this going to hurt? You know, how long am I going to be in the dental chair? All that kind of stuff. This is a big procedure. Can I eat food? Yeah, really basic stuff, you know, that people want to know. And no, it's all about, I did this and I taught there and I have, you know, 15 trainees or whatever it is, but not, there's this gap, this perception gap of what it is that their client base is really looking for, as opposed to their expertise.
There's a famous old joke in management that the staff of pretty much any business, you can be made to agree with this statement: our business would be brilliant if we didn't have all these customers.
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
And there are so many businesses where literally the staff view the customers as a problem in delivering the business they want to be, but instead of understanding these are the reason you have a job. But it's amazing, you know, they get into their little bubble. This would be great delivering it my way if only these pesky customers didn't get in the way. This means you're delivering it wrong. This means you're doing it for your convenience and forgetting that people aren't paying for your convenience, they're paying for their convenience. And they'll pay more for it to be more convenient.
Yeah. And then what, you know, I think I mentioned this actually on Bogus Hangout quite a while ago, because it was almost a year ago, and I was doing research on a number of software as a system businesses, and I was just absolutely flabbergasted how difficult they made it to find out what they do. And a number of
Software as a system or software as a service?
software as a
like-
service.
I'm-
Yeah,
Okay.
and they would I'm sorry, yeah, and they would say, "We're wonderful. We're going to solve all your problems. Sign up here." And I'm like, okay,
It's true.
so what exactly does your software do? Sometimes I had to go and find their help support stuff that somehow they hadn't put behind a wall, so anybody could get there if they were looking, to find out exactly what they did. And to me, that doesn't help the people who are actually doing the original research. We're usually not CEOs or CFOs or anybody who's actually going to make the buying decision. It's the people who do the research to make the recommendation on how that system is going to help their company. And those people aren't addressed, their questions aren't answered. They also, this was very true across the board, that in order to find out, there was a way to find out what they did, and that was to fill out a request form, which wasn't like your name and your email. It was your name, your email, your business, how many people worked in your business, blah, 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 blah. You know, it was a long questionnaire. This is just to find out what they do.
Right.
And then, you know, some poor salesperson would call me, and I'm like, I just want to know what you do. I couldn't say I was researching for some magazine, you know. But
I've done that before though. Like I've just been straight up with them, and like I've had really good experiences. Like they're people that like are working too, and like part of your job. And so, like I had like a couple of them actually tell me, "Thank you so much for telling me that." Like right away, I'll change everything that I was just about to like tell you and cater it more toward.
I would say I wasn't in the market at that time, and this was exploratory, investigative research about what they were doing. But what that means for the salespeople is this is a cold lead. This is not a warm lead for them. So a lot of the time that they're spending, this is like a systems management thing, that a lot of time that their salespeople are spending online with inquiries, they're not dealing with the right people, and they're not going to make a sale because the information is so difficult to acquire. A warm lead is somebody who's read what you do, you know, what your service actually does, and then you have a business and you want to get more details about how it's going to work with your business. Or how can I present this to the decision maker?
I'm going to quickly throw in a comment by Michael Thomas. He said, when I come across an individual that has had more than 3 profiles on a single platform, and not one of them reflects what they're currently presenting themselves as, I consider anything they say as spam. Yeah, I've seen a few of the same people, Michael Thomas, and yeah, I think it's safe to pretty much call anything they do spam.
Mhm. I've had SEOs who take exception to the fact that I talk about one of the purposes behind SEO being to provide customer service, to answer questions that customers may have about a business, and to do it well, to make it easier for them to understand what you do, how you might help them, what services you may provide for them. And I couldn't understand why they would feel that way about it.
But then again, Bill, we both remember SEOs who've argued blue in the face that SEO should have nothing to do with whether or not the sales are made. That's, you know, beyond the SEO's control. That's the company. It's down to them. As long as I get people to the page, my job's done.
Can you guys hear me? Okay, cool.
Oh, now yes.
Sorry. I think that like one point is on customer becoming a problem is when people want to have easy wins, and because like finding out what customer want takes time and effort. Finding out what to write to them takes additional time. Writing it well takes additional time versus like producing content that you want and like going out with what you want and hoping that they're gonna stick to them. It's relatively easier because you don't need to know who they are, what they want. That you just do it, and for some, yeah, because like it's not saying that like all the content that they don't want, you know, it doesn't work. You know, some content that customer don't want still works, but like probably these people that just focus on this one is only to get like short wins, because you and also it's difficult to understand what customer really want. You know, you keep iterating on what they don't want versus what they're searching for actually. And
if you've made a decision to go into a certain line of business, you should have some idea of what your customer's asking for, what they need, and you should be able to articulate that and respond to it. You should be able to roll out that 30-second elevator speech that explains what you do, why you do it, and how you can help other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one thing that I found really useful is just getting feedback from like even from like from social and people that manage like the social platform. Is very useful to get, like, and you can get quite easy feedback in literally like few hours. You realize whether customer really like that content, and you literally have people saying, "Oh wow, this is the best guide I found on this subject." You know, thanks. Versus the guy that just replies with a like, and yeah, but it doesn't add any value. And then you find that, or otherwise you even have like people that come back to you and say that is actually not true, which is even more sad.
You have to be a little bit careful with those kind of things, and it's something that comes to mind because I said earlier I was looking at an old Hangout Bill and I did a couple of years ago for a network roundtable, and we were talking about honesty in business. And we said, you know, one of the things that you often see is, you know, if you're doing Hangouts, some of the Hangout hosts have 300 people say they're going to attend the event. And of course, when the event comes around, 40 people actually turn up to say hi. And a percentage of those turn up at the start, say, here, go off, do other things, try and desperately, you know, come up with something in the last few minutes. They watch the last few minutes to leave a closing comment. So you think they've been there for the whole event. And, you know, hopefully you'll go and like them and interact with their stuff. Social media can be a very, very biased thing. A lot of people have an agenda in being on social media in the first place, and that's to promote their own things, and therefore they will sometimes pretend to promote yours, or you know, they will give you pluses in the hopes that you'll give them pluses. They will give you likes and retweets in the hope that you'll like and retweet them. They're not actually indicative of customers at all, and that there can be false praise.
Yeah, I know, definitely. That's why, like, but like some comments, and depending on the profile who is and so on, you can pretty much guess whether you get a retweet just because you are a brand that is tweeting something versus having some genuine interaction. Like, I think that you can still figure out whether people are who are the genuine one, unless they're very good, or unless they, like.
It depends how good they are at it. Let's face it, I'm a marketer. It's my job to always be convincing and persuasive when I'm portraying somebody completely different. There are times when, as a marketer, I am taking on a persona, I'm writing from a specific viewpoint, particularly when I'm literally writing for a company and I am taking on the persona of that company, which has been designed. We know what this company is meant to be, who it's meant to be, what it should sound like, who it's talking to, what language they respond to. It's calculated. Is it authentic? It is within its context. It's authentic in the way that an actor gives an authentic performance. But is it authentic as I am this? But no. And I'm sure we've all done enough writing to have done very similar things. We talk very enthusiastically about things which personally we may not actually care about very much. We always try to find the thing that connects it with us so that we can have that genuine enthusiasm there. But it can be difficult. I always say, there's a lot of people who think they are ready to be copywriters and ready to be content marketers. And it's easy to look at your, personal collection of short stories or poetry about things you're interested in and think, yeah, I'm a good writer. Now write poetry about a toothpaste.
Right.
Exactly. But
it's all connecting with like what is ordinary, because. And sorry, I'm just I get really passionate about this because I write for different brands and I've started honing that skill, going back to acting. Like when I got a part that I didn't want, but I wanted to be in the play. So, just method my way through it. Totally you find that human element and anything can be exciting.
Yeah, it is like that. Kristen, it's very much like acting because you're taking on that persona and adding what you have, but still reflecting the persona of the business. It's a very good way to describe it.
And again, as the author who needs to put everyone's perspectives into the story to make those characters real, including the villain, you've got to have compassion for every one of your characters to flesh them out. It's easy to see when somebody has set up a villain to be the villain and hasn't really thought of it from the villain's viewpoint. And those are always poor stories. It's always so much more effective when you can kind of feel an empathy with even the villain. And it sometimes...
Oh, that's so important. It is. I know when I was reading a lot of screenplays and doing that, people would send me scripts and they'd have bad guy 1, bad guy 2, bad guy 3, bad guy 4. And we'd say, why don't you take one of these people and give them a personality? Give them a way of speaking, because it's so much about dialogue and film. Give them a way of speaking. The others are backdrop, but you've got to have one where the audience hates them. I mean, if they're the villain.
I've got an odd source. It's my favorite thing to communicate this. There is a film called Bugsy Malone, which is a kid's film. There was a song in that called We Could Have Been Anything That We Wanted to Be.
Mm-hmm.
Watch that on YouTube, find it somewhere, and listen to the message of it. And it's about these people who've ended up as these hoods, as these bad guys, and how it's their wasted potential. They could have been anything, and this is what they've ended up. It's fantastic. I highly recommend it.
Bugsy Malone.
Great song. It is a great song. And I think there is an awful lot of good stuff sometimes put into children's literature.
There is.
Perhaps because you have to think that a little bit more carefully about explaining things to the audience and making it clear for them. I think sometimes the authors actually put in that extra little effort that really pays off. Look at the success of Harry Potter. And half of those readers are adults, you know, more than half.
Mm-hmm.
We are technically at time, but I'm going to carry on for another few minutes because YouTube basically robbed us of the first little bit. So, yeah, until people tell me that they've got to go, I'm going to keep us rolling. It's our revenge. Yeah, you can't keep us down, YouTube.
That's right.
Bill and Ammon's Bogus Revenge episode.
But I think before we do go, we do kind of want to have a round of what everyone's up to in the next week. So we'll do that bit now. Bill, I'll start with you. What have you got coming up?
I've got to put together a presentation for a conference I'm going to in November. I'm going to talk about the old context vectors and try to explain how you would go about trying to do keyword research in where you've got to get a better sense of the meanings of your topics in a way that a search engine can understand it.
Yeah. I dare you to put in one of my favorite tools of late. It's called Keyword Shitter. It's actually a really, really good tool, but of course, because of the name, not a lot of people bring it up at conventions. I dare you, Bill.
It's really fun when you have like when you're talking to someone like from another country too, and like trying to say that but not trying to say it. You know what I mean? You know,
it's quite interesting. Is it so good at picking out keyword because not many people are using it, or because I guess that the more people use it, the more they will run out of bandwidth, or how can they still give a free? Don't they get blocked by?
I think.
I remember when people used to talk
data.
about link condoms, and people didn't want to say the word condoms in their presentations before kind of no follow became the common term for it.
Yeah.
Wiki balloon or something. I don't know. How did they get around it? Like they would like try and not say it.
I remember a guy once, it was over here, but his family safe software blocked the word condominium because it had the word condom. Yeah. Yeah, it was always a fascinating thing. Link condoms have their own, genre and their own joke within that genre. Jen, what are you up to in the coming weeks?
Finishing up a presentation on AMP for State of Search in Dallas in a few weeks coming up, and editing a big monster article I'm working on. Excellent. And writing, of course.
Yes. AMP's one of those ones that's very interesting. Mostly the coverage is very, very positive. Obviously, Google's huge on it, but of course there is a negative side to AMP as well. It does make some things very difficult. I'm hearing a lot from publishers whose business is publishing and are ad-driven that it creates nightmares for their ads. Of course,
they can put ads in it. It's a lot of people aren't, or they're just not. They don't know how to use it. Yeah.
And some of the tracking solutions, of course, don't work very well with AMP because of course
they've just announced they're going to support Google Tag Manager. They announced that earlier today. An interesting thing that I came across is that hackers and phishers are using the Google AMP URLs now to try to disguise their phishing URLs. So that, I mean, normally if we get an email that says it's from Google, what do us nerds do? We go and we look at the URL and make sure that it is actually, you know, from google.com, not from google.com dot some spammy something.com, right? But now these URLs are www.google.com/amp, then their phishing URL. And that's not very good.
Yeah.
And they are out in the wild.
Through some of the spam filters people have set up in the past as well. Yeah, exactly.
So hopefully there'll be some way that they can, well, I don't know how they can, but I mean, it's not good.
Anton, we didn't get to hear much from you this week. What are you up to at the moment? What's coming up in your next few weeks?
Well, this week is Google Q&A, and you're not on it, yeah, because you don't speak Spanish. Yeah, it's in Spanish, yeah, which is for me a very big event, obviously, because I haven't been using my Spanish for 3 years. It's kind of became a bit rusty, so hopefully it will be fine. And another thing, I have to squeeze out of basically 6 guys, 2 of them Googlers, and 4 of them experts, 3 of them here. We have to squeeze Google Q&A in English topic and everything. So this is my things. So I hope you help me a bit with that.
I think we can come up with a ton of ideas of what we'd love to do for Q&A, but I think getting Google to be on board with it might be the trickier part. Because we could be like, hey, let's have a whole Q&A on Rank Brain, and they'd probably be like, yeah, no, I don't think so.
Yeah, but we have to try.
You know, the one you really ought to do soon, Anton, you ought to get them to give you some contact details so we can do a Q&A with YouTube. Because YouTube is a big as a search engine.
John Miller said you broke YouTube, so I guess you're entitled to fix it. So we can call YouTube and you fix it.
Yeah, well, he's watching. So John, if you know somebody that we should be talking to about doing a Q&A with YouTube, because
or you know, if you want to talk about Rank Brain.
He might tell us he's okay with talking about Rand's brain. Can we talk about Rand's brain? Yeah. Fab, what are you up to this coming week?
Cleaning links, internal links, because I realized that like having autonomous teams that play with the site generate a lot of like randomness that shouldn't be. So like on how the site structure should be, and people that at some point decide to place a new links in either the footer or the navigation bar. So I'm fighting with some of that stuff as well, and it's quite important from like a crawling point of view, because I'm seeing things not changing slightly, and I want to clean what it shouldn't be.
Yep. Can barely see you above the film strip this week. I keep telling you, got to have your eyes top third, otherwise you just vanish beneath the little film strip. That's all right.
It's the film beanbag. I've been trying to find it, but it doesn't.
Zara, what are you up to?
It's I have a client, and we have a new project that we're starting this week that's augmenting the basic things that we have worked on in the last month. And I have some things to do with my author blog, which is totally separate. It's just fun stuff, writing fiction. And Arturo Perez Reverte has a new book, Falco, and I'm starting that, and it's wonderful.
Excellent. Do you mind if I ask you a personal question? Ages ago, we did an Ammonize, and I recommended that you start learning code. And I know you dipped into it and really got into it. How far did you get? And are you still practicing? And
I'm still practicing. That's the practicing level. Yeah.
Excellent.
But I'm better than, from nothing to something, but I use it in extremis. I really don't consider myself technical. I mean, it makes sense to me. That's a good question, Ammon. It makes sense to me. It's very logical, but it's not my thing.
I think one of the best ways to actually, get the hang of it, past that first point, is you write a lot of articles. Write those in HTML. Now, you're only having to worry about marking up the section that you're writing, but thinking about the style, thinking about what's links, what are titles, and putting that in the HTML is really good practice. It gets you very, very familiar with it, and it's not scary at all, because there you're literally dealing with only 20 of the commands, really.
Right, that's a really good idea, and I think I'll do an experiment with this fellow that I'm working with also in that regard, because I did titles and meta descriptions for everything that we had up, and they're still not up yet because it was up to him to put them in. But if I do it, it can't not be there.
Yeah. We did notice that John did indeed say, "Gotta run." Been fun watching. The minute he'd been said rank Brian, yeah. Kristin, I know you did get quite into the coding yourself, and you've been not just following the one language, but really sort of looking at the broader spectrum. How's that been for you, and what are you up to in the coming weeks?
Yeah, I was gonna put a plug out for Visual Studio Code. I really like that interface. And you can do like a couple of things that are pretty cool. You can, or at least that I haven't discovered that you can do with some other of those things. So if you like logical, I might suggest that you look into. But I don't get a chance to. I was getting super into it for like a while there, and I miss it. Like that's like poor Bill yawn. I really miss code. I've just been writing so much. If I could choose anything to do, and I didn't have to worry about money, I would dive into code, because it's so fascinating to be able to create the web you're creating that you interact with. It's awesome.
Well, one thing to do might be, as you know, David Ammon, somebody we've had on the show a lot, and most of us, really get on with and really respect. He has a thing called the Sunday Read. Now, he does this because it keeps him in great practice for collecting a lot of thoughts and putting them together into a fascinating thing, and he delivers this every week, and it's really in-depth stuff. And it's amazing that somebody is producing this without it taking the whole week and nothing else getting done. But it's really good format. Find one day a week where for a couple of hours you write something, but write it in code. The same as I'm saying for Zara to do when she's writing her post, to do it in HTML, exactly that. And it doesn't matter what it is, it doesn't matter how successful you expect it to be with an audience, just for the sake of it, write for yourself, for the creative process, but do it with the code, and you'll find that the code becomes a pleasure. And you get to use it in a constructive and practical way, which for me certainly has always meant that the lesson sticks. Theory is all well and good, but it isn't until we make something practical and useful to ourselves that it really sticks. At least that's what I've always found.
And being able to teach it to someone else too.
Any tips on picking up code for somebody?
I learned coding back when we didn't have anything else. Like WordPress didn't exist, nothing existed, even editors didn't exist. Because I think I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that when HTML editor called Hot Dog, which pretty much was basically just click a button to put the tag in, like it would write out the tag for you, so you didn't have to hand tag it every time. Yeah, that was my whole HTML. So I had no choice. I had to learn it or nothing, right? It would be another like 8 years or something before something came along that would make it a little bit easier. And then, of course, we had front page that some people were using that was like, you think pages have code bloat now? Holy smokes, you should have had a look at what front page did back in the day.
Do you know what? I think pages are more bloated today by 10 times than the worst of what we were slating front page for at that time. Yeah, it was nonsense code, but then again, look at any site built without thought in .NET, and my goodness, that view state tag, which I have seen reach phenomenal sizes. I've seen one that was 128k of gobbledygook as view state, and it was on the home page. I haven't viewed anything yet.
Yeah, I see someone mentioning Notepad++.
Yeah.
There wasn't even Notepad++ back then. It was like the straight up Notepad.
Yeah. I've got to admit, I am with Carl there. I use Notepad++ as my main editor of choice. I enjoyed Dreamweaver, and one of the things we were talking about recently on a Twitter group is, you know, it had a bad rep because a lot of people tried to use it in the visual mode. And of course, there it decides its own tags. I used it as a text editor then. I could quickly switch views in, and that it had this wonderful thing of virtual includes. So you could tell it what your navigation was. You know, here's my file, that's my navigation, and here's my default template, and it would automatically put those into every page.
I used Dreamweaver as well way back. And it was awesome for that because it meant that, you know, you were still hand coding to some extent, but it meant you didn't have to, you know, populate all the identical fields. And it made that if you added something to the navigation or you need to update your copyright, you could just change it on the template and just go kaboom, and it would, you know, unleash it across all your pages. And then, of course, you'd have to upload it via your slow modem, but
yeah, well, we've started off quite a discussion. Everyone's giving away their ages. Kim Krause says she uses Sublime text. Well,
yeah,
of course, for me and Kim, all of our text is Sublime. We've got John Moore saying that Hot Metal Pro. I remember that, John. Yeah, Hot Dog. I mean, yeah, it was very basic, but it's kind of where Notepad++ comes in today. You know, it has the syntax highlighting and things like that. That's as much as you need, really. I always think that working in the code view is the best anyway, because it gives you that extra perspective, and Kim will probably agree with this. You need to think like the browser sometimes for accessibility, for usability. You want to see what the browser's having to deal with, not just what it looks like to a user once it has downloaded, but look at the amount of code and the amount of instructions that you're giving to a machine and think, are all of these necessary? You know, we talk about WordPress bloat a lot, where it's including all kinds of things that, you know, are included on every page because one page somewhere in your site has this one paragraph that uses this huge block of code. Every page has to have that huge block of code. Terrible, terrible practice.
I totally agree on like being forced to practice, because like even though I'm working in this field now for a living, I actually was coding a bit more back in the time where when you were forced to. Whether right now, when I have something that I don't really care, but at work there are developers that are, you know, I don't even touch code, and probably they would kill me if I try. But like even at home, like I often go for the lazy option if I have to, unless I really care about something, because you have that ability to, like, you know, you have the option, and then you have to prioritize, and then you prioritize in, you know, towards the easy one, which is great.
Yeah, Anton was just admitting in the sidebar there that, you know, he first started HTML with clay tablets. Fortran and cards. Yeah, that's my first computer studies lessons. We spent the day blacking in little boxes on pieces of paper that would be turned into punch cards to run on the university computer. Yeah.
Yeah, I started with the punch cards, and after that it was was like a band, punch band or something like that. Internet
I remember
didn't exist at that time.
we got those punch cards for scrap paper when I was in elementary school. We always thought they were so cool because they had all the little squares cut out of them. Of course, then we had no clue that somehow this actually worked with the computer.
It was so much fun, those early computer lessons. You know, I remember working in BASIC, and I remember, when the BBC Model B came in, and, you know, oh, wow, it's got 16 colors, and its graphics are phenomenal. Look, it can draw triangles. And then you would spend 2 hours programming to make it draw a triangle that you could have drawn in 2 minutes.
Huh.
Oh, this is a labor-saving device, is it? Yeah.
That reminds me about when I was in elementary school. We had an Apple IIc at my house, and so that's what I actually originally started coding on. Was I was making little nerdy programs in my Apple IIc.
The same concept has been true for video games for a short time. So the effort of getting a game starting on a computer was, and also the quality in the very middle, like a 386, the quality of a game in there was like, compared to Nintendo or anything like that, was terrible. But still, the effort of making it run with all the floppy disk and then managed to make it start was like, it was probably that achievement that make people, because the final result was nowhere near the time you were putting into it. It's similar for the triangle, you know. But
well, I am going to have to take this offline because we've taken back all the time that YouTube stole back of us today. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We started a great discussion in the live comments on YouTube. Yeah. Carl says he uses 0 and 1 only. Yeah, I'm sure you do.
Oh, yeah, 0 and 1.
I knew somebody who insisted on programming almost everything he could in assembly for good practice, but he was a security expert. And when you are dealing with hackers, you want the really low-level languages because they're very, very fast. Everything else is having to compile and translate into machine code. The code that can run straight from machine code is faster. If you want to hack advanced firewalls, you actually use a language that's faster than the language the firewall is written in, and it gives you an advantage. Anyway, that's all we have time for this week. Thanks everyone for joining. Kim, yes, we are old, but don't announce it. I'm a guy. I don't get old. I just become more distinguished. Take care, everyone. Thanks for joining.
bye-bye.